Millionaire told he's sterile, but his maid gave birth to twins, and the DNA test revealed a twist no one saw coming. Hi, my beautiful, precious family. It's your Mr. Peter. Yes, I'm back. Your friend is back. Your brother is back. The voice that speaks straight to your heart has returned, and I missed you more than words can ever say. There's something I never told you. The night I stopped storytelling, I cried. Deeply. Only Binta saw it. Only she knew. Because this isn't just a channel to me. It's my home. You're my family. Now that I'm back, I need just one thing from you. Promise me we'll rise again. Let's bring life back to this space, like this video. Comment from your heart. Share it with someone who needs love today. Let's tell YouTube and the world, this is not just content. This is connection. This is family. And please, don't leave the story in the middle. Every second I write is for you. Every scene holds a piece of my soul. If you leave too soon, you'll miss the love I wrote for you. Now, as always, I won't begin without praying over your life. I pray peace hugs your soul like a warm blanket on a cold night. I pray the battles inside you grow quiet, that joy sneaks back into your life when you least expect it. And may your heart feel this truth. You matter, you are loved, and here, you are never alone. Let's rise again as one. With all my love, forever, your Mr. Peter. Nathan Hoffer had built the perfect fortress around his heart, until the day an angel disguised as a housekeeper walked through his door. The 42nd floor of Hoffer Tower pierced the Dallas skyline like a steel blade, and at its summit sat a man who had forgotten the warmth of human touch. Nathan stood behind floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection ghost-like against the sprawling metropolis below. At 34, he commanded an empire worth $12 billion, yet felt emptier than the homeless man he'd passed entering the building. 16 years, 16 long years since the car accident that had stolen everything, his fiancée Emily, his ability to father children, and most devastatingly, his capacity to feel anything beyond the cold satisfaction of a profitable quarter. Mr. Hoffer? Magnolia Beauregard's honeyed voice drifted through the intercom. The new housekeeping candidate has arrived for her interview. He didn't turn from the window. Send her to Augustus. I don't have time for domestic staff meetings. Sir, after the tabloid incident, you specifically requested to personally approve all residential employees. The incident. 3 months ago, his previous housekeeper had photographed his private spaces and sold them to gossip magazines. The violation had cut deeper than any business betrayal. His penthouse was his sanctuary, the only place where he could drop his mask of corporate perfection. Conference room, 5 minutes. Nathan straightened his Armani tie and strode toward the meeting space, his Italian leather shoes echoing in the marble corridor. The executive floor exemplified minimalist luxury, clean lines, muted grays, expensive emptiness, like his existence. He pushed through glass doors, expecting the usual parade of middle-aged professionals with impeccable references and forgettable personalities. Instead, time stopped. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded gracefully in her lap, wearing a simple black dress that had seen better days, but somehow made her appear regal. Dark hair was pulled into a neat chignon, revealing the elegant curve of her neck. When she looked up, Nathan experienced something dormant for 16 years, a jolt of pure, undeniable attraction. Her eyes held the warmth of melted chocolate, intelligent and deep, with an inner fire that made his pulse quicken. High cheekbones spoke of indigenous heritage, while full lips curved into a professional smile that didn't quite reach those magnificent eyes. Beautiful, yes, but more than that, she radiated warmth that seemed to fill the sterile conference room with life. Mr. Hoffer, Augustus rose, his British accent crisp as always. May I present Miss Marjie Perez? Her references are exceptional. Nathan found his voice, though it emerged rougher than intended. Miss Perez, She stood with fluid grace, extending her hand. "Mr. Hoffer, thank you for considering me." Her accent carried musical traces of Mexico, soft and melodious. When their hands touched, electricity shot up his arm. Her palm was soft yet calloused from honest work, her grip firm and confident. She met his gaze directly, unflinching, and Nathan realized with startling clarity that she wasn't intimidated. Everyone was intimidated by him. CEOs, senators, socialites, they all cowered beneath his ice-cold stare. But not her. She looked at him as if he were simply a man, not the corporate predator the media had dubbed the Ice King of Dallas. "Your experience?" he asked, reluctantly releasing her hand. "I worked for Dr. Beaumont Ashworth's family in Houston for 4 years. Before that, I managed cleaning services for several downtown office buildings. I understand the importance of discretion and absolute respect for privacy." Her English was careful and precise, with only the faintest hesitation on complex words. Nathan wondered how many languages she spoke, how many barriers she'd overcome to sit in this room. "Why did you leave the Ashworths?" Pain flickered in her eyes, quickly masked but unmistakable. "Dr. Ashworth relocated to Boston for a research position. I chose to remain in Texas to care for my grandmother." Family. The word struck Nathan like a physical blow. He'd once had family, parents who died in a plane crash when he was 27, a fiancée who'd perished in the same automobile accident that had destroyed his future. Now he had only employees and business associates who feared or wanted something from him. "This position requires living on site," Nathan said, his voice colder than he intended. "The penthouse includes staff quarters. Hours are irregular, and I value privacy above all else." "I understand completely, sir. Discretion is paramount in any professional arrangement." Professional arrangement. The words should have been reassuring, yet they felt like chains tightening around his chest. Nathan studied her face, searching for signs of the gold-digging behavior he'd encountered countless times. Beautiful women had tried every manipulation to get close to him, sensing his wealth like predators scenting blood. But Marjie Perez regarded him with polite professionalism and something else, something that made his frozen heart skip: compassion, as if she could see past his expensive armor to the wounded man beneath. "Augustus will show you to your quarters," Nathan said abruptly. "You begin tomorrow at 7. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Mr. Hoffer." He looked back, and she smiled. Genuinely this time, warm and radiant. "Thank you for this opportunity. I promise you won't regret it." Nathan nodded curtly and left the room, his heart hammering against his ribs. In the elevator ascending to his penthouse, he pressed the button with hands that barely trembled while trying to regain composure. It was merely attraction, a biological response to a beautiful woman. He was human, after all, not a machine. He could control this. The elevator doors revealed his sanctuary, 3,000 square feet of minimalist perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Dallas, while carefully curated artwork adorned the walls. Everything in its place, cold and flawless and utterly lifeless. Nathan walked to his bar and poured 3 fingers of 25-year-old Macallan. The scotch burned his throat, but couldn't warm the chill settling in his chest. He'd spent 16 years constructing this fortress of solitude, and now one woman with chocolate eyes threatened to bring it all crashing down. His phone buzzed with a text from Magnolia. "Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. Also, your mother called again about Thursday dinner. She's bringing someone special for you to meet." Nathan grimaced. Melanie Hoffer remained determined to marry him off to suitable candidates, refusing to accept that he had no intention of producing heirs or continuing the family legacy. How could he explain that a man who couldn't give a woman children had no right to pursue love? He walked to his bedroom, noting the pristine surfaces and perfectly made king-sized bed. Tomorrow, Marjie would move through these rooms, touching his belongings, breathing life into his carefully controlled environment. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Nathan stripped away his suit and stepped into the rainfall shower, letting scalding water pound his shoulders. He'd hired her because she was qualified, he told himself, because she had excellent references and understood discretion. It had nothing to do with the way she'd looked at him, as if he were worth saving. Standing beneath the punishing spray, Nathan tried to ignore the voice whispering dangerous possibilities. For 16 years, he'd been content with emotional exile, convinced himself that a sterile man had no right to love. But as he closed his eyes, all he could see was Marjie Perez's radiant smile and the warmth in her chocolate eyes. For the first time in 16 years, the ice around his heart showed its first hairline crack. Tomorrow, she would enter his world. And Nathan Hoffer, the man who controlled everything, suddenly felt like he was about to lose control of the one thing that mattered most, his carefully guarded heart. He'd built the perfect fortress around his emotions, but perhaps he'd finally met the woman who held the key to tearing down every wall he'd constructed. Chapter 2. Breaking Through Steel Walls. Angels, Marjie had learned, sometimes came disguised as devils, and the devil in the penthouse was calling out in his sleep. The raw, anguished sound tore through the pre-dawn silence of the 42nd floor like a wounded animal caught in a trap. Marjie dropped her cleaning supplies and hurried toward the source, pulse racing as Nathan's tortured voice echoed through the hallway. "Emily, no, don't leave me!" She found him in his bedroom, thrashing against silk sheets soaked with perspiration. His face, so coldly controlled during daylight hours, was twisted with grief and terror. His powerful frame shook as he battled demons only he could see. "Mr. Hoffer," she whispered, approaching cautiously, "please, wake up. The car, I can't reach her. Emily, please." Marjie's heart shattered witnessing such raw pain. She'd worked for wealthy families before, but she'd never encountered anguish this devastating. Without hesitation, she sat on the bed's edge and gently touched his shoulder. "You're safe," she murmured in Spanish, then English. "You're safe now. Wake up, por favor." His eyes flew open, wild and disoriented. For a moment, he stared without recognition, chest heaving. Then, awareness crashed over him like a wave, and he jerked away from her touch. "What are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse, broken. "I heard you crying out. I was worried." Nathan sat up, running, shaking hands through his dark hair. In moonlight streaming through the windows, he appeared younger, vulnerable. Expensive pajamas and silk sheets couldn't hide the fact that he was simply a man haunted by his past. "You shouldn't be here," he said, though no anger colored his voice, only exhaustion. "Do they come often?" The nightmares. He looked at her then, really looked. She wore simple cotton pajamas, pink fabric that had seen better days, and her hair fell in waves around her shoulders. No judgment lived in her eyes, only compassion. Every night, he admitted, the words seeming to surprise him. "For 16 years. Emily," Marjie said softly. "She was important to you." His face went rigid. "You don't know anything about it." "I know pain," she replied simply. "I recognize what it looks like when someone carries ghosts." Something in her tone made him pause. "What ghosts do you carry, Marjie Perez?" She remained quiet for a long moment, then spoke barely above a whisper. "I was 19 when I crossed the border. My parents died in a factory fire in Juarez. American company, Mexican workers, no safety regulations. I came here with nothing but hope and my abuela's prayers." Nathan's breath caught. "Alone?" "Not alone, never completely alone. I hired coyotes who promised safe passage." Her laugh was bitter. "They kept their promise, but the price—" She shook her head. Some prices are too painful to speak of. Nathan understood. He'd seen enough of the world to know what happened to beautiful young women who trusted the wrong people. The fact that she'd survived, built a life here, spoke to strength he couldn't begin to fathom. "Your grandmother," he said. "She's ill?" "Diabetes. The medication costs more than I earn in 2 months, and she's too proud to ask for help. She raised me when my parents worked 16-hour days in that factory. Now it's my turn to care for her." Nathan found himself leaning forward, drawn by her quiet strength. "That's why you need this position." "I need this job," she confirmed. "But that doesn't mean I pity you, Mr. Hoffer. Rich or poor, we all carry our pain." "Emily was my fiancée," Nathan heard himself say. "We were driving to meet her parents for dinner. A drunk driver ran a red light at 60 miles per hour. Marjie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. She died instantly. I spent 3 months in the hospital. When I finally woke up, doctors told me about the internal injuries. No children, they said. No biological legacy. Nothing to pass on." "Children don't create a legacy," Marjie said firmly. "Love does. The way you treat people, the kindness you show. That's what endures." Nathan laughed bitterly. "Kindness? I'm not kind, Marjie. I'm cold, calculating, ruthless. Ask anyone in Dallas." "I'm asking you," she said, meeting his gaze. "Why did you give Augustus employment when he was 62 and no one else would hire him?" Nathan started. Why did you anonymously pay for your driver's son's cancer treatment? Magnolia talks too much. Why did you personally fund the scholarship program at Dallas Community College?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "Because I could afford it." "Because you're kind," Marjie corrected. "You hide it behind walls and expensive suits, but it's there. I see it." No one had ever seen kindness in him before. They saw power, money, success. But this woman, this beautiful, damaged woman, looked at him and saw something worth saving. "I should go," she said, standing. "Let you rest." "Stay," Nathan said, the word escaping before he could stop it. "Please, the nightmares return when I'm alone." Marjie hesitated, then settled into the chair beside his bed. "Tell me about her. About Emily." His throat tightened. "She was a teacher, 3rd grade. She loved children more than anything in the world, said she wanted a house full of them." He laughed brokenly. "She would have been an incredible mother. She would have loved you for who you are, not what you could give her." "How do you know?" "Because I see what she saw. A man who's been hiding his light for 16 years. They sat in comfortable silence, and Nathan experienced something he hadn't felt since the accident: peace. His penthouse had always been a fortress, but with Marjie present, it felt like a sanctuary. "Tell me about your grandmother," he said. Marjie's face softened. "Abuela Rosa. She's 83 and still believes she can take care of herself. Makes the best tamales in Dallas, though she won't admit the recipe came from her mother-in-law. She taught me that home isn't a place. It's wherever love lives." "Does she know about your job?" "She knows I work for a very important man who pays well. She doesn't know about the penthouse or the tower. She'd worry that I'm reaching too high, that I'll fall and break both our hearts." "Are you? Reaching too high?" Marjie looked at him, and Nathan saw a flicker of something dangerous in her eyes. "I don't know yet." The words hung between them, loaded with possibility and risk. Nathan felt his carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble, and for the first time in 16 years, he wasn't certain he wanted to rebuild them. "I should teach you business English," he said suddenly. "Your grammar is nearly perfect, but your pronunciation needs refinement. If you're going to work in corporate America, you need to sound like you belong here." "You'd do that for me?" "I'd do many things for you, Marjie Perez," Nathan said, the admission surprising them both. She smiled, and Nathan felt his pulse quicken. Then perhaps you could teach me about business as well. I've always been fascinated by how empires are built. Most empires are built on the bones of the conquered, Nathan said darkly. But some are built on hope, Marjie countered, on the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. Nathan had forgotten about hope. He'd buried it in the same grave as his dreams of love and family. But looking at Marjie, he felt a tiny spark of possibility flicker to life in his chest. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" he asked. "Should I be? Everyone else is." Marjie stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city lights. "I've been afraid before, Mr. Hoffer. Real fear, the kind that makes you want to die rather than face another day. You're not that kind of frightening." "What kind am I?" She turned back to him, and her smile was soft, understanding. "You're the kind of frightening that comes from loving too much and losing it all, the kind that builds walls to prevent being hurt again." Nathan's breath caught. "You see too much. I see a man who's been alone for 16 years and forgotten how to let people in. But I also see a man who's worth the effort it would take to remember." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. He stood and walked to where she waited by the window, stopping just close enough to catch her scent. Something warm and feminine and utterly intoxicating. "You're playing with fire, Marjie." "I've been burned before," she said quietly. "I survived. I don't want to hurt you." "Then don't." Nathan reached out and touched her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. Her skin was soft as silk, warm as sunshine. "I don't know how to do this anymore. How to feel." "You're feeling now," she whispered. "I can see it in your eyes." Something snapped in Nathan's chest. He pulled her against him, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was desperate, hungry. 16 years of loneliness poured into the joining of their mouths. She kissed him back with equal fervor, her hands fisting in his hair as if afraid he might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers, pulse hammering against his ribs. "This is insane," he breathed. "Sigh," she agreed. "Completely insane. I'm your employer. You're also the first man in 5 years who's looked at me like I'm more than just a convenient target." Nathan pulled back to study her face. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "I should go, let you rest." But Nathan caught her hand. "Tell me." "It's not important. It is to me." Marjie sighed. "Men see what they want to see. Rich men think money can buy anything. Poor men think I should be grateful for their attention. But you look at me like I'm worth knowing." "You are worth knowing," Nathan said fiercely. "You're worth everything." The words surprised him with their intensity. He'd spent 16 years believing he had nothing to offer a woman, that his inability to give her children made him less than a man. But Marjie looked at him like he was enough, exactly as he was. "I should go," she said again, but she didn't move. "Yes," Nathan agreed, "you should." Neither of them moved. They stood there in the moonlight, her hand in his, both balanced on the edge of something that could either save them or destroy them completely. Finally, Marjie stepped back. "Good night, Mr. Hoffer." "Nathan," he corrected. "When we're alone, call me Nathan." "Good night, Nathan." She walked to the door, then paused. "The nightmares. They might not come back tonight." "Why not?" "Because for the first time in 16 years, you're not alone." After she left, Nathan stood by the window until dawn, watching the city wake up below. For the first time since the accident, he felt something other than emptiness. It was dangerous, this feeling. It could destroy everything he'd built, everything he'd become. But as the sun rose over Dallas, Nathan Hoffer realized he was willing to risk it all for the woman who'd looked at his darkness and seen light. The ice around his heart was melting, and there was no going back. Chapter 3. The Heart's Awakening. The most dangerous thing about playing with fire wasn't getting burned. It was discovering you'd been cold your entire life. 2 months had passed since that moonlit night when Marjie chased away Nathan's nightmares, and every dawn brought a sweet torture of stolen glances and careful distances. What had begun as English lessons had evolved into something far more precious, conversations that lasted until midnight, shared meals in the penthouse kitchen, and moments of connection that left both breathless with possibility. Nathan stood in his private office, watching Marjie tend to his bookshelf with the same reverence others reserved for priceless artifacts. She'd transformed his sterile penthouse into something that felt almost like home. Fresh flowers appeared on his desk, simple daisies that cost nothing but meant everything. His coffee somehow tasted better, and he'd caught himself humming in the shower, a habit abandoned 16 years ago. "Your pronunciation is improving remarkably," Nathan observed, watching her reach for a volume on the highest shelf. "Gracias. Thank you. You're a patient teacher." Their evening study sessions had become the highlight of Nathan's existence. They'd sit in his study, ostensibly working on grammar and vocabulary, but really learning the careful ways 2 damaged hearts might learn to trust again. "Here, allow me," Nathan said, stepping close to retrieve the book she couldn't reach. The movement brought him directly behind her, near enough to smell her shampoo, something simple and clean that made his head spin. Her breath caught as his chest brushed her back, and Nathan felt that familiar fire race through his veins. "Nathan," she whispered, and the sound of his name on her lips was like a prayer. He should maintain distance, should preserve the professional boundaries that had been eroding a little more each day. Instead, he allowed his hands to rest on her waist, feeling the warmth of her through the thin cotton of her dress. "This is dangerous," he murmured against her ear. "I know." She leaned back against him, her head falling onto his shoulder. "But I can't seem to stop." Nathan's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. He turned her in his arms and kissed her with all the passion he'd been restraining. She responded immediately, her hands tangling in his hair as she kissed him back with equal desperation. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Nathan cupped her face in his hands, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I met you," he confessed. "What took you so long?" she asked, her smile soft and teasing. "Fear," he admitted. "I haven't felt this way about anyone since Emily. It terrifies me." "I'm not Emily," Marjie said gently. "I'm not going anywhere. You might. When you truly know me, when you see all the darkness I carry, you might run. Try me." Nathan led her to the leather sofa in his study, pulling her down beside him. The city lights twinkled below, but all he could see was her. "I wasn't always like this," he began. "Before the accident, I was different. I laughed more. I dreamed about the future, about building something lasting. Emily used to say I lit up a room when I smiled." "I've seen that smile," Marjie said. "When you don't think anyone's watching, when you're reading something that amuses you. It's beautiful." After she died, I shut down completely. It was easier than feeling the pain. I built this empire, this reputation, this fortress of a life. I told myself I was protecting what remained of me. But you were just surviving, not living. "Exactly. Until you." Nathan traced the line of her jaw with his finger. "You make me want to live again, to feel again, and that frightens me more than any corporate takeover." "Why?" "Because I have nothing to offer you. I can't give you children, can't give you the family you deserve." Marjie's eyes flashed. "Did I ask for children?" "No, but..." Did I ask for anything beyond what we have right now in this moment? No. Then stop deciding what I want and let me tell you. She took his hands in hers. I want you, Nathan Hoffer. Not your money, not your empire, not some fantasy of what you think you should be. I want the man who has nightmares about losing someone he loved. I want the man who secretly pays for strangers' medical bills. I want the man who looks at me like I'm worth more than gold. You deserve so much more. I deserve to choose, and I choose you. The words broke something open in Nathan's chest. He kissed her again, softer this time, pouring all his gratitude and growing love into the connection of their lips. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. I think I'm falling in love with you, he whispered. I know, she said, smiling. I'm falling too. They held each other as the city sparkled below, two hearts that had been broken learning to beat in rhythm again. Nathan had never felt so vulnerable, so exposed, and yet so completely safe. Tell me about your dreams, he said. What did you want to be when you were little? A teacher, like Emily. I wanted to help children learn, to give them the tools to build better lives than their parents had. Why didn't you pursue it? Marjie's expression grew wistful. Documentation. You need proper papers to teach in America, papers I don't have. So I clean houses and save money and hope that someday... What if I told you I could help with that? Nathan, no. I won't be your charity case. Not charity. Investment. I'm starting a new foundation, educational opportunities for undocumented immigrants. You could be our first scholarship recipient. Marjie stared at him. You do that? I'd do anything for you. But your board of directors, your investors, let me worry about them. The foundation will be my personal project, funded by my own resources. No one can dictate how I spend what's mine. Tears filled Marjie's eyes. You don't understand what you're offering me. I understand that you're brilliant and kind and deserve every opportunity this country can provide. I understand that watching you achieve your dreams would make me happier than any business success ever could. I love you, she said simply. I love you so much it scares me. I love you too, more than I thought I could love anyone again. They kissed again, and this time there was no hesitation, no fear. Just two people who had found each other against impossible odds, who had chosen love over safety, vulnerability over isolation. Stay with me tonight, Nathan said against her lips. Nathan ... Not like that. Not yet. I don't want to be alone anymore. Marjie smiled. Neither do I. They moved to Nathan's bedroom, and for the first time in 16 years, he wasn't afraid of the dark. Marjie curled against his chest, her breathing evening out as she fell asleep in his arms. Nathan lay awake, marveling at how different the world looked when you had someone to share it with. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Dinner Thursday. Evangeline will be there. Time to stop this ridiculous bachelor nonsense. Nathan deleted the message without responding. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't care what Melanie Hoffer thought about his choices. He'd found something worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. The next morning, Nathan woke to the scent of coffee and something that made his mouth water. He found Marjie in his kitchen, humming as she cooked. Buenos dias, she said, turning to smile at him. I made breakfast. You don't have to cook for me. I want to. Sit. Nathan settled at his breakfast bar, watching her move around his kitchen with easy grace. She'd changed everything about his space without moving a single piece of furniture. She'd simply filled it with life, with warmth, with the kind of love he'd thought was lost to him forever. What are you making? Huevos rancheros, my abuela's recipe. She set a plate before him, and Nathan took a bite. The flavors exploded on his tongue, spicy, rich, complex. It was the best thing he'd ever tasted. This is incredible. Wait until you try her tamales. I'd like to meet her, Nathan said, the words surprising him. Your grandmother. Marjie's hand stilled. She's very protective of me. As she should be. I'd like her permission to court you properly. Court me? Marjie laughed. We're not in the 19th century, Nathan. Maybe not. But I want to do this right. I want to meet your family to show them that my intentions are honorable. Your intentions? Nathan set down his fork and looked at her seriously. I want to build a life with you, Marjie. Whatever that looks like, wherever it leads us. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep, holding you every night. I want to be worthy of the love you're offering me. Marjie's eyes filled with tears. Nathan, ... I know we've only known each other for 2 months. I know this might seem fast, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. What are you asking me? I'm asking if you'll let me love you, really love you. I'm asking if you'll take a chance on a man who's spent 16 years learning how to build walls and is just now remembering how to tear them down. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, I'll let you love me. Yes, you can meet my abuela. Yes, to all of it. Nathan stood and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. When he set her down, they were both grinning like fools. I should probably ask your grandmother's permission first, Nathan said. She'll like you. She has a soft spot for broken things that can be mended. I'm not broken anymore, Nathan said, cupping her face. You fixed me. We fixed each other. As they stood in his kitchen, surrounded by the scent of spices and the sound of laughter, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in 16 years. Hope, not just for today or tomorrow, but for a future filled with the kind of love he'd thought was lost to him forever. The ice around his heart had melted completely, and in its place burned a fire that would warm him for the rest of his life. He'd found his home in Marjie's arms, and he was never letting go. Outside, Dallas was waking up to another day, but inside the penthouse, 2 hearts beat as one, and the future looked brighter than either of them had dared to dream. Chapter 4. Love's Sweet Surrender. Some surrenders weren't defeats, they were the most beautiful victories imaginable. 2 weeks had passed since Nathan's declaration of love, and now he stood outside a weathered apartment building in East Dallas, his pulse hammering as he prepared for the most important interview of his life. In his arms he carried flowers, not the ostentatious arrangements money could buy, but simple sunflowers that reminded him of Marjie's smile. She's going to love you, Marjie assured him, squeezing his hand. Just be yourself. Myself is a man who spent 16 years forgetting how to be human, Nathan said, adjusting his deliberately casual attire. He'd traded his usual Armani for simple khakis and a button-down shirt, wanting to meet Rosa Perez as a man, not a bank account. You're more human than you realize, Marjie laughed, gesturing to the flowers, and you brought exactly the right thing. They climbed 3 flights of stairs to a narrow hallway that smelled of cooking spices and decades of love. Marjie knocked on a door marked 3B, and Nathan's heart hammered as footsteps approached. The door opened to reveal a petite woman with silver hair and eyes exactly like Marjie's. Rosa Perez stood barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled the doorway as she studied Nathan with the intensity of a general evaluating a potential ally or threat. Abuela, Marjie said, switching to Spanish, this is Nathan. So, Rosa said in accented but clear English, you are the man who has captured my nieta's heart. Nathan stepped forward, offering the sunflowers. Mrs. Perez, it's an honor to meet you. Marjie speaks of you constantly. Rosa accepted the flowers with a slight nod, her dark eyes never leaving his face. You may call me Abuela Rosa. Come, we eat. A man cannot be properly judged on an empty stomach. The apartment was small but immaculate, filled with family photographs and the scent of something that made Nathan's mouth water. Rosa led them to a tiny kitchen where a feast was laid out on a table that had clearly seen decades of family meals. "Sit," Rosa commanded, and Nathan obeyed immediately. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals and faced down corporate sharks, but this 83-year-old woman intimidated him more than any boardroom. Rosa served him a plate piled high with tamales, rice, and beans. The first bite transported Nathan to another world, rich, complex flavors that spoke of generations of love and tradition passed down through careful hands. "This is extraordinary," he said, meaning every word. "My mother's recipe," Rosa said, watching him eat with shrewd eyes. "Marjie tells me you are teaching her English." "She's teaching me much more than I'm teaching her," Nathan replied. "Your granddaughter is remarkable, Abuela Rosa. She's intelligent, kind, strong." "She is also vulnerable," Rosa interrupted, her voice gaining an edge. "She has been hurt before by men who promised her the world and delivered only pain." Nathan set down his fork, meeting the older woman's gaze directly. "I would never hurt her. All men say this. Few mean it. I mean it." Nathan's voice was steady, certain. "I love her. I want to marry her with your blessing." Rosa's eyebrows rose. "You ask permission? In this modern world, young people do what they please." "Some things shouldn't change," Nathan said. "Respect for family, for tradition, these matter. Marjie matters. Her happiness matters more to me than anything else in the world." For the first time, Rosa's stern expression softened slightly. "Tell me about your family, Nathan Hoffer." "My parents died when I was 27. I was engaged once, but she died in a car accident 16 years ago. I have no one except Marjie now." "No brothers, sisters, cousins?" "No, ma'am." Rosa nodded thoughtfully. "And children? Do you want children?" Nathan's throat tightened. This was the moment of truth. "I can't have children, Abuela Rosa. The accident that killed my fiancé, it damaged me internally. I'll never be able to give Marjie biological children." "And this troubles you?" "It devastates me," Nathan admitted, "but Marjie says she chooses me anyway. I just pray she won't regret that choice." Rosa studied him for a long moment, then turned to Marjie. "Mija, go to the store. We need milk for dessert." "Abuela, we have milk." "Go," Rosa said firmly. "I wish to speak with your young man alone." Marjie kissed Nathan's cheek and whispered, "She likes you. Trust me." After Marjie left, Rosa poured Nathan coffee in a cup that had probably been old when she was young. They sat in silence for several minutes before she spoke. "My husband could not give me children," she said quietly. 3 miscarriages broke both our hearts, but we had 47 years of love, and we raised Marjie when her parents worked themselves to death trying to provide." Nathan's chest tightened. "I'm sorry for your losses." "Love is not about what you can give," Rosa continued. "It is about what you choose to share. My Marjie has been alone too long, carrying too much weight on her shoulders. She needs someone to help bear the load. I want to be that someone. She told me about your nightmares, about how she sits with you in the darkness." Nathan nodded, unable to speak. "A woman does not do this for a man unless her heart is completely his. But hearts can be broken, Nathan Hoffer. If you break hers, I will find you, and my arthritis will not stop me from making you suffer." Despite everything, Nathan smiled. "I believe you would. Do you know why she came to America?" "She said her parents died in a factory fire." Rosa's face darkened. "The fire was started by faulty wiring that the American company knew was dangerous. They chose profit over safety. 16 people died, including Marjie's parents. She came here seeking justice, not just opportunity." Nathan felt ice form in his stomach. What happened to the company? Nothing. No justice for poor Mexican workers. The company paid bribes, filed papers, disappeared into another corporation. Marjie learned that money and power protect those who have them and destroy those who don't. That's why she was reluctant to trust me. See, but she does trust you. She sees something in you that gives her hope. Do not make her regret that faith. Never, Nathan said fiercely. I would die before I hurt her. Death is easy, Rosa said. Living with honor is hard. Are you prepared to live with honor? Yes, ma'am. Rosa nodded and stood. Then you have my blessing. But know this, you are not just marrying Marjie. You are joining our family. We take care of each other no matter what. I understand. Do you? When people whisper about your Mexican wife, will you defend her honor? When the world tries to make her feel small, will you help her stand tall? When times are hard, will you remember that love is a choice you make every day? Nathan stood as well, towering over the tiny woman but feeling humbled by her strength. I will spend every day of my life proving that I'm worthy of her love and your trust. Bueno. Rosa smiled for the first time. Now, help me with dessert. We make flan together. For the next hour, Nathan learned to make flan under Rosa's watchful eye. His hands, so sure in boardrooms, fumbled with the delicate custard. But Rosa patiently corrected his technique with the same care she'd once used to teach Marjie. Cooking is like love, she said, as they waited for the dessert to set. It requires patience, attention, and faith that the result will be worth the effort. When Marjie returned, she found them laughing over Nathan's lopsided attempt at caramel. The sight of her two favorite people bonding made her heart soar. He is acceptable, Rosa announced. His flan needs work, but his heart is in the right place. I told you she'd love you, Marjie whispered to Nathan. She terrifies me, Nathan admitted, in the best possible way. That evening, as they walked through downtown Dallas, Nathan felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. Receiving Rosa's blessing had meant more to him than any business success ever could. There's something I want to show you, he said, leading Marjie to a small park overlooking the Trinity River. In the center of the park stood a simple gazebo, strung with twinkling lights that turned the evening magical. Nathan had spent the afternoon preparing this moment, wanting it to be perfect. Nathan, Marjie breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. He dropped to one knee, taking her hands in his. Marjie Perez, you saved my life without even trying. You brought light into my darkness, hope into my despair, love into my empty heart. I want to spend the rest of my life earning the gift of your love. He opened a small velvet box to reveal not a massive diamond, but a simple antique band with 3 small stones, a diamond flanked by 2 emeralds. This was my grandmother's ring, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. The diamond represents our love. The emeralds represent the families we're joining, yours and what's left of mine. Will you marry me? Yes, Marjie breathed, tears streaming down her face. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then stood and kissed her with all the love in his heart. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. I love you, he whispered against her forehead. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Show me, she said softly. Nathan's breath caught. Marjie, I'm sure, Nathan. I want to be yours completely. He lifted her in his arms and carried her to his car, both of them trembling with anticipation and love. The drive to his penthouse passed in a blur of stolen kisses at red lights and whispered promises. In his bedroom, bathed in moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Nathan set her down gently beside the bed. Are you certain? He asked, cupping her face in his hands. I've never been more certain of anything." Nathan kissed her then, pouring 16 years of loneliness and longing into the connection of their lips. She responded with equal passion, her hands working at the buttons of his shirt as he traced the curve of her spine with reverent fingers. When they came together, it was with a tenderness that took Nathan's breath away. This wasn't just physical need, it was two souls recognizing their other half, two hearts beating in perfect rhythm. "I love you," Nathan whispered as he moved within her, each word a promise, a prayer, a vow. "Te amo," she replied, her voice breaking with emotion, "forever and always." Afterward, they lay entwined, Nathan's arms wrapped protectively around Marjie as she traced patterns on his chest. "No regrets?" he asked softly. "Only that we waited so long," she said, smiling up at him. "I wanted to do everything right, to be worthy of you." "You've always been worthy, Nathan. You just needed to believe it." "I believe it now. With you, I believe in everything." As dawn broke over Dallas, Nathan held the woman he loved and marveled at how completely his life had changed. 3 months ago, he'd been a man frozen in time, trapped by his past and convinced he had no future worth living. Now he had everything: love, hope, and the promise of a lifetime spent with the woman who'd taught him that some miracles came disguised as Mexican housekeepers with hearts big enough to heal the world. He was no longer Nathan Hoffer, the cold billionaire. He was simply a man in love, and that was more than enough. Chapter 5, Paradise Found. Heaven, Nathan discovered, wasn't a place in the clouds. It was waking up next to the woman you loved every morning for 6 perfect months. The morning sun painted golden stripes across their silk sheets as Nathan watched his fiancée sleep, her engagement ring catching the light. In 4 months, she'd be his wife, and he still couldn't quite believe his fortune. "I can feel you staring," Marjie murmured, eyes still closed but smiling. "Can't help it. You're beautiful when you sleep." "I'm beautiful when I'm awake too," she said, opening one eye playfully. "Even more so." Nathan kissed her forehead, "Especially when you're fishing for compliments." Marjie laughed and rolled over to face him. "What time is it?" "Early, but I have good news." His eyes sparkled with excitement. "Dr. Beaumont called yesterday. Your grandmother's new treatment plan is working perfectly, and your green card application was approved." Tears filled Marjie's eyes. "Both? Nathan, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. She's going to be my grandmother too, and you're going to be my wife. Family takes care of family." She'd transformed his sterile penthouse into something that felt like home. Fresh flowers appeared on his desk. His coffee tasted better, and he'd caught himself humming in the shower, a habit abandoned 16 years ago. "Speaking of family," Nathan said, reaching for his phone. "My mother texted. She wants to have lunch today." Marjie's smile faded. Melanie Hoffer had been waging a subtle war against their relationship for months, growing more sophisticated in her attacks. Instead of direct confrontation, she'd been planting seeds of doubt about cultural differences and questioning Marjie's motives. "Maybe I should talk to her," Marjie suggested. "Absolutely not. You don't deserve her poison." An hour later, Nathan strode into his office to find his mother pacing behind his desk like a caged lioness. Melanie Hoffer was striking in her Chanel suit and perfect chignon, radiating the confidence of someone accustomed to getting her way. "Nathan," she said without preamble, "this engagement has created complications." "Good morning to you too, Mother, and careful, you're talking about the woman I love." "I'm talking about a situation that's spiraling out of control. Do you know what the board members are saying? What society is whispering? I don't care what people say. Well, I do. The Hoffer name means something in this city." Melanie's voice turned softer, more dangerous. "I understand the appeal. She's exotic, grateful. But this isn't love, it's fantasy. Nathan's hands clenched. You have no idea what you're talking about. I know you're about to throw away everything our family built for a woman who can't even give you an heir. The words hit like a physical blow. How do you know about that? I have my sources. You need children to continue the Hoffer legacy, Nathan. Real children. Any children I have will be adopted regardless of who I marry. I'm sterile, Mother. Have been for 16 years. Milani went pale. Then marry someone from our circle. Evangeline Pemberton would be perfect. I don't love Evangeline. I love Marjie. Love fades. Class endures. Nathan stood, his voice deadly quiet. I'm marrying Marjie Perez in 4 months. You can attend graciously or stay away, but you will never disrespect her again. If you continue this campaign against her, you'll be cut off from my life completely. I've been alone before. I can be alone again. Melanie's eyes filled with tears. I'm your mother. I'm trying to protect you. You're trying to control me. There's a difference. Nathan opened the door. When you're ready to treat my fiancé with respect, you're welcome in my life. Until then, stay away. After she left, Nathan found Marjie in the kitchen preparing lunch. She took one look at his face and crossed to him immediately. That difficult? She asked, wrapping her arms around him. She wants me to marry Evangeline Pemberton instead. Maybe you should consider it, Marjie said quietly. Nathan stared at her. What? Your mother isn't wrong, Nathan. Evangeline comes from your world. She'd fit into your life without causing problems. You are my life. You and Rosa and the children will adopt. That's all I need. I don't want to cause a permanent rift. You're not causing anything. She's choosing to make this difficult. Nathan cupped her face. I would rather have one day with you than a lifetime with anyone else. My mother will come around, or she won't. But I'm not giving you up. That evening at Rosa's apartment, Nathan told them both about Melanie's ultimatum. The older woman listened thoughtfully while serving her famous enchiladas. The mother who thinks her son is too good for my granddaughter, Rosa said when he finished. Something like that. I have known such women. They forget that love is a gift, not a business transaction. Rosa patted his hand. Do not worry, mijo. Mothers who truly love their children want them to be happy. If she loves you, she will accept what makes you happy. And if she doesn't, then she loves her pride more than her son. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Marjie traced circles on Nathan's chest. What are you thinking about? She asked. How different my life is now. 6 months ago, I measured success by quarterly profits. Now I measure it by your smile when you wake up, by Rosa's laughter, by feeling like I finally belong somewhere. Do you miss the simplicity of your old life? Never. The only thing I miss is the 16 years I wasted before I found you. Nathan rolled over to face her. I used to think I was broken beyond repair. You showed me I was just incomplete, waiting for you. We found each other, Marjie corrected. 2 broken pieces that fit perfectly together. As they fell asleep in each other's arms, Nathan marveled at how completely his world had transformed. He'd traded isolation for love, cynicism for hope, emptiness for a future so bright it took his breath away. But even as contentment washed over him, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that storm clouds were gathering. His mother's threats echoed in his mind, and some part of him, the part that had survived 16 years of heartbreak, whispered that happiness this perfect couldn't last forever. Nathan pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the woman in his arms and the love that had already overcome so many obstacles. Whatever came next, they would face it together. After all, love like theirs was worth fighting for, worth risking everything to protect. Chapter 6. When Heaven Meets Hell. The cruelest truth about paradise was that it made you forget hell existed until the devil came knocking at your door with a federal badge. Nathan's world shattered with 3 sharp raps on his office door at exactly 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that had started like any other. He'd been reviewing foundation proposals with Marjie, planning their charitable work after the wedding, when Magnolia's panicked voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Hoffer, there are federal agents here to see you. They say it's urgent." Nathan and Marjie exchanged glances. "Send them in," Nathan replied, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his veins. The door opened to admit 3 people in dark suits, a woman with steel-grey hair and calculating eyes, a younger man with the bearing of military precision, and a third agent who remained by the door like a guard. "Mr. Hoffer," the woman said, flashing her credentials, "I'm Agent Casey, FBI Financial Crimes Division. This is Agent Rodriguez and Agent Kim. We need to speak with you privately." Nathan's pulse quickened, but his voice remained calm. "My fiancée can hear anything you have to say to me." "Sir, this concerns federal criminal charges. We strongly advise—" "She stays," Nathan said firmly, reaching for Marjie's hand. Agent Casey's expression hardened. "Very well. Mr. Hoffer, we have substantial evidence that you've been involved in a complex money laundering operation spanning the past 5 years, wire fraud, tax evasion, and violations of the Bank Secrecy Act." The words hit Nathan like physical blows. "That's impossible. Every transaction through Hoffer Industries is documented and legal." "Perhaps you'd like to explain these offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands." Agent Casey slid a folder across his desk. "Accounts that received over $78 million from your company with no corresponding business activities or tax declarations." Nathan opened the folder with steady hands, his blood turning to ice as he saw bank statements, wire transfers, and signatures that looked exactly like his own. The documentation was meticulous, professional, and utterly damning. "I've never seen these accounts before in my life," Nathan said. "The signatures say otherwise, as does your former business partner, Jameson Holloway." Nathan's head snapped up. "Jace! What does he have to do with this?" "Mr. Holloway approached us 6 weeks ago with evidence of the illegal activities. He's been granted immunity in exchange for his full cooperation and testimony." The room tilted around Nathan. Jameson Holloway had been his closest friend and business partner for 8 years, until their partnership dissolved 5 years ago in a bitter dispute over company direction. Nathan had bought out Jace's shares and thought they'd parted ways permanently. "Agent Casey," Marjie spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. "There has to be some mistake. Nathan would never—" "Miss Perez, I'd advise you to consider your own legal position carefully. As Mr. Hoffer's fiancée and someone with access to his personal affairs, you could be considered a co-conspirator." Nathan's blood turned to fire. "Leave her out of this. She has nothing to do with my business operations." "That remains to be determined. We have evidence suggesting significant lifestyle changes coinciding with the alleged criminal activity. Expensive gifts, legal fees for immigration services, medical treatments for family members. Those are legitimate personal expenses," Nathan said through gritted teeth, "funded by illegally obtained money, according to our investigation." Agent Rodriguez stepped forward with another folder. "Mr. Hoffer, we have recordings of phone conversations where you discuss moving money through shell corporations, voice-authenticated computer records showing you accessing these accounts from your personal devices, and testimony from your former partner detailing your methods." Nathan's mind raced through the implications. If the FBI had this level of evidence, his empire was finished. Everything he'd built, every employee who depended on him, every investor who trusted him, all of it would crumble. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" Nathan asked. "Conspiracy to commit money laundering, wire fraud, tax evasion, and violation of the Bank Secrecy Act. We estimate the total amount involved at over $200 million spanning 5 years. 200 million. The number hit Nathan like a sledgehammer. That kind of money meant decades in federal prison, not years. It meant losing everything, including Marjie. "I want to speak with my attorney," Nathan said. "Of course. But understand, Mr. Hoffer, the federal prosecutor will be filing charges within 72 hours unless we reach a cooperation agreement." "What kind of cooperation?" Agent Casey exchanged glances with her partners. "Full financial disclosure, testimony against your co-conspirators, forfeiture of assets used in the criminal enterprise, and a guilty plea to reduced charges. And, if I refuse, life in federal prison, complete asset forfeiture, and investigations into everyone connected to you, including your fiancé's immigration status, which could be revoked if she's found to have benefited from criminal proceeds." Nathan's world went white with rage. "You leave her out of this." "That depends entirely on your level of cooperation, Mr. Hoffer." After the FBI left, Nathan sat in stunned silence, staring at the folders of evidence. Every signature looked perfect, every document bore authentic letterheads, every transaction appeared legitimate on the surface. Whoever had framed him had done it with surgical precision. "Nathan," Marjie said softly, "this is impossible. You would never—" "I know," he said, his voice hollow. "But look at this evidence. It's perfect. Too perfect." His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Adolphus Hotel Bar, 1 hour. Come alone if you want answers. J. Jameson, his oldest friend and apparently his betrayer." The Adolphus Hotel's bar was dimly lit and nearly empty at 3 in the afternoon. Nathan found Jameson Holloway sitting in a corner booth, looking like he'd aged a decade in the 5 years since their partnership ended. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by something that looked disturbingly like guilt. "Hello, Nathan," Jace said without looking up from his drink. "You son of a bitch." Nathan slid into the opposite seat, his voice deadly quiet. 20 years of friendship and you destroy me for what? Money? It's not about money. Then what? Revenge because I bought you out? Jealousy because the company succeeded after you left? Jace finally looked up, and Nathan was shocked to see tears in his eyes. "It's about my daughter." Nathan's anger faltered. "What daughter? You don't have children." "Emma. She's 7 years old now, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, diagnosed 3 years ago. The treatments, they cost $3 million, and insurance won't cover the experimental protocols that could save her life." The world shifted around Nathan. "Jace, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. I tried. I called your office dozens of times over the past year. Your assistant said you were too busy with personal matters, that you'd get back to me. You never did." Nathan's heart sank. The past year he'd been completely consumed with winning Marjie's love, with planning their future together. He'd delegated most business calls to focus on what mattered most to him. He'd never known his oldest friend was desperate for help. "Who came to you?" Nathan asked. "Who offered you the money for Emma's treatment?" "Senator William Pemberton. He said you'd become a liability to important people, that your association with certain elements was damaging business relationships." "Pemberton!" Nathan's voice was bitter. "Evangeline's father." He knew about transactions I'd never heard of, Nathan. Had documents, recordings, forgeries, all of it. I've never seen those accounts before in my life. Jace's face went white. "But he had proof. Voice recordings of you authorizing transfers, computer logs showing access from your devices, voice synthesis technology, and hacked systems. It's not that hard anymore, especially if you have the resources of a U.S. senator and access to my recorded phone calls from years of business dealings." "Oh God." Jace buried his face in his hands. "What have I done?" You've destroyed both our lives for a man who wants to force me into marrying his daughter. I can fix this. I'll recant my testimony, tell them I lied. Too late. They have your signed statements, your immunity agreement. The FBI doesn't care about the truth anymore. They care about conviction statistics and closing cases. Nathan's phone rang. Marjie's name appeared on the screen. Nathan! Her voice was frantic. I'm at the penthouse. There are FBI agents here with a search warrant. They're taking everything. Computers, files, financial records. Where's Rosa? Safe at her apartment. But Nathan, they asked about me, about my immigration status, about gifts you've given me. I'm scared. Listen to me carefully. Call David Morrison. He's my attorney. Tell him to meet us at the office immediately. And whatever you do, don't answer any questions without him present. Nathan hung up and turned back to Jace. How much do you know about Pemberton's plan? Just that he wanted you discredited. He said you'd become too independent, too unwilling to play by the rules that people like him depend on. What rules? I don't know. But Nathan, there's something else. Pemberton said the FBI is planning to arrest you tonight. He wanted you in custody before your wedding. 6 weeks. Nathan and Marjie were supposed to be married in 6 weeks. Instead, he'd be in federal prison, and she'd be under investigation as a suspected accomplice. I have to warn her, Nathan said, standing. Nathan, wait. Jace grabbed his arm. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. If I'd known it was all lies. You'd have done the same thing, Nathan said quietly. You were trying to save your daughter's life. I understand. Is there anything I can do? Pray that Marjie forgives me for what I'm about to do to her. Nathan drove through Dallas traffic like a man possessed, his mind calculating options and finding none. Every scenario ended the same way, with Marjie's life destroyed because she'd loved him. He found her at the penthouse, surrounded by the chaos of the FBI search. Agents were boxing up his computers, photographing his artwork, cataloging everything of value. Marjie stood in the living room like a lost child, her face pale with shock. Nathan! She ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. What's happening? Why are they doing this? Someone framed me, he said, holding her tight. Used my identity to set up illegal accounts, forged my signatures on documents. The evidence is overwhelming. But you're innocent. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be arrested tonight, and anyone connected to me will be investigated. Your green card application, your status here, all of it could be revoked if they think you're involved. Marjie's hands shook. What are we going to do? Nathan took her hands in his, memorizing the feel of her skin, the warmth of her touch. You're going to disappear. Tonight. Take Rosa and go somewhere safe. Canada, maybe Mexico. Anywhere but here. No. Her voice was fierce. I'm not leaving you. You have to. If you stay, they'll destroy you to get to me. Your residency will be revoked, you'll be deported, and I'll be powerless to help you from prison. Then we'll fight this together. With what? They have documents, recordings, witness testimony. Even if I could prove my innocence, it would take years and cost millions. I don't have years, Marjie. I have hours. Tears streamed down her face. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Nathan pulled her into his arms, breathing in her scent one last time. I love you more than my own life. That's why I have to let you go. Nathan, please. Listen to me. His voice was urgent, desperate. There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 847. The key is in my desk drawer. Inside there's cash, bearer bonds, everything you'll need to start over. Take it and run. I won't leave you. You will, because staying means destroying both our lives instead of just mine. I can survive prison if I know you're safe. I can't survive knowing I destroyed the woman I love. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from David Morrison. FBI moving up timeline. Arrest warrant signed. You have 90 minutes. I have to surrender myself. Nathan said, kissing her forehead. David Morrison will know how to reach me, but promise me you'll run. Nathan, promise me. I promise, she whispered, breaking his heart with 2 words. Nathan kissed her one last time, pouring all his love and regret into the connection of their lips. When they parted, both were crying. I'll find a way back to you, he promised. Somehow, someday, I'll find a way. I'll wait for you, she said, however long it takes. Nathan walked away without looking back, knowing that if he saw her face again, he'd never have the strength to save her from the hell that was about to consume his life. As he drove toward his attorney's office to arrange his surrender, Nathan Hoffer realized that losing everything meant nothing compared to losing the woman who'd taught him how to love. Paradise had been swept away in a single afternoon, and he was drowning in a hell of someone else's making, but he'd saved her. Whatever happened to him, Marjie would survive, and someday she'd find happiness with someone who could give her the life she deserved. It was the only victory left to him, and it would have to be enough. Chapter 7. The Ultimate Sacrifice. The man who had everything discovered that losing it all was the only way to find out what truly mattered. The Dallas County Detention Center smelled of disinfectant and despair, but Nathan Hoffer had stopped noticing 4 weeks ago. He sat on the narrow cot in his cell, staring at a letter from David Morrison that had arrived that morning. The words blurred together as he read them for the 3rd time. Government willing to negotiate. Full asset forfeiture in exchange for reduced sentence. You'd serve 8 years instead of life without parole. 8 years. In 8 years, Marjie would be 36. She'd have built a new life somewhere safe, maybe found someone else to love. The thought felt like a knife twisting in his chest. But it was better than life in prison with no hope of ever seeing her again. "Hoffer! Visitor!" The guard's voice echoed off the concrete walls. Nathan looked up, surprised. His visitor log had been depressingly short. David Morrison twice weekly, his mother once, a strained, tearful encounter, and nobody else. The corporate sharks who'd once fought for his attention had vanished the moment his mugshot hit the evening news. In the visiting room, Nathan's breath caught. Magnolia Beauregard sat at a metal table, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her hands shook as she clutched a manila envelope. "Maggie," Nathan said, settling across from her, "you shouldn't be here. Association with me could destroy your career." "I don't care about my career," she said fiercely. "I care about proving your innocence." "The evidence is overwhelming. Even David thinks I should take the plea deal." "The evidence is fabricated." Magnolia opened the envelope with trembling fingers. "I've been working with someone for 3 weeks. Look at this." She spread photographs, financial records, and typed reports across the table. Nathan's hands trembled as he examined the documents. "These bank statements," Magnolia said, pointing to highlighted sections. "They show the Cayman accounts were opened using a sophisticated identity theft operation. But look at the digital fingerprints." Nathan studied the data. The IP addresses trace back to Washington, D.C. Senator Pemberton's office building. "He's been planning this for years, Nathan, ever since you rejected his first attempt to arrange a marriage with Evangeline. This proves he created the accounts, but not that I didn't use them. Keep reading." Nathan flipped through pages, his pulse quickening as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. Shell companies registered to fictitious addresses using stolen identities, forged documents created with military-grade software, voice recordings assembled from hundreds of hours of Nathan's recorded phone calls, stitched together with AI technology to create conversations that never happened. "Jesus," Nathan breathed, "how deep does this go?" Deeper than we thought. Pemberton has connections in the Justice Department, allies in financial regulatory agencies. He's been building a case against you for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to strike. Why now? Magnolia's expression grew sad. Because you fell in love with someone who wasn't his daughter. Because you found happiness he couldn't control or manipulate. Nathan closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the scope of Pemberton's obsession. How did you discover all this? I hired Remington Carstairs, that investigative journalist from El Paso. Cost me my entire savings and then some, but he has sources everywhere. Disgruntled staffers, whistleblowing agents, hackers who owed him favors. Maggie, you shouldn't have... You gave me a chance when no one else would, Nathan. You trusted me with responsibilities beyond my experience, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I won't abandon you now. Nathan reached across the table and squeezed her hands. This information, can we use it? Remy thinks so. He's building a story that will expose the entire conspiracy. But Nathan... She hesitated. There's something else. Marjie didn't run like you told her to. Nathan's heart stopped. What do you mean? She's been working with Remy. She has connections you don't know about. People from her journey to America, immigrants who work in government buildings, cleaning services that see everything. She's been building a counter-investigation. Where is she? I don't know. She's using false identities, staying underground. But Nathan, she's risking everything to clear your name. If Pemberton finds out what she's doing... Nathan's blood turned to ice. She could be killed. Or worse, Pemberton has friends in very dark places. That evening, Nathan lay on his cot, staring at the ceiling as his cellmate snored below. Marjie was out there somewhere, risking her life to save him. The thought terrified and inspired him in equal measure. The next morning brought another unexpected visitor, one Nathan had hoped never to see again. Senator William Pemberton looked exactly like what he was, a career politician with silver hair, practiced smile, and the dead eyes of a shark. He wore an expensive suit and the kind of confidence that came from decades of wielding power without consequences. Mr. Hoffer, Pemberton said, settling into the visitor's chair with casual arrogance, you look terrible. Senator, to what do I owe the displeasure? I think you know, I'm here to offer you a way out of this unfortunate situation. Your situation, you mean? Pemberton's smile never wavered. I don't know what you're talking about. You're facing serious federal charges for crimes you committed. I'm simply here as a concerned family friend offering assistance. What kind of assistance? The charges can disappear, all of them. Your assets can be returned, your reputation restored. You can walk out of here today and pretend none of this ever happened. In exchange for marriage to my daughter, a proper marriage to a woman of breeding and class, someone who understands the responsibilities that come with wealth and position. Nathan laughed bitterly. You destroyed my life to force me into an arranged marriage. I saved your life. That Mexican woman would have bled you dry eventually. This way, you get a wife who can actually contribute to your empire instead of diminishing it. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. Don't ever speak about Marjie that way again. Face reality, Mr. Hoffer. She's gone. Vanished without a trace, abandoning you the moment things got difficult. That should tell you everything you need to know about her character. She left to protect herself, like I told her to. She left because opportunists always do when the opportunities dry up. Evangeline would never abandon you. She understands loyalty, duty, family honor. I don't love Evangeline. Love is a luxury for poor people. Rich people marry for strategic reasons, to build dynasties, to secure futures, to maintain social order. Nathan studied the older man's face, seeing the cold calculation behind the practiced charm. You really believe that, don't you? That love is just a weakness to be exploited? I believe in power. And the reality is that you have a choice. Marry my daughter and reclaim your life, or rot in prison for the next 30 years. There's a third option. Oh, I expose your conspiracy, your corruption, your abuse of power. I destroy you the same way you tried to destroy me. Pemberton's smile finally slipped. You have no proof. Actually, I do. Did you really think I built a $12 billion empire without learning how to investigate my enemies? You're bluffing. Am I? Your IP addresses on the offshore accounts, your shell companies, your forged documents, voice synthesis technology purchased through one of your campaign donors' front companies. Should I continue? Pemberton's face had gone pale. Even if you could prove conspiracy, you'd never get a fair trial. I have friends. You had friends, past tense. Corruption scandals tend to make politicians very lonely very quickly. Nathan leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. Here's my counteroffer, Senator. You're going to call the Justice Department this afternoon and confess your crimes. You're going to provide evidence exonerating me completely, and you're going to resign your Senate seat in disgrace. Or what? Or I spend every penny I have left destroying you. I'll hire the best investigators, the most vicious lawyers, the most relentless journalists. I'll make your life a living hell until you're bankrupt, imprisoned, and forgotten. You'd lose everything. I've already lost everything that matters. The only question is whether I take you down with me. Pemberton stood abruptly, his composure finally cracking. You're making a mistake, Hoffer. I have resources you can't imagine. So did I until you stole them. The difference is, I have something you'll never understand. What's that? Love. Real love from a woman who would die for me. That makes me more dangerous than any amount of money or political connections. After Pemberton left, Nathan sat alone in the visiting room, feeling something he hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. Not hope for himself. He'd accepted that his old life was over. But hope that justice might still exist, that love might still triumph over corruption. 2 days later, David Morrison arrived with news that changed everything. It's over, David said, his voice filled with amazement. Pemberton's entire conspiracy just collapsed. Nathan felt the world shift beneath him. What happened? Someone leaked his entire operation to every major news outlet simultaneously. The Washington Post, CNN, the New York Times, they all received identical packages containing every document, every recording, every piece of evidence proving your innocence. Who leaked it? David smiled grimly. The packages were sent anonymously, but the investigative work has Remington Carstairs' fingerprints all over it. Pemberton's phones were wiretapped, his offices bugged, his computer systems hacked. Someone built a case so airtight that he had no choice but to confess. Marjie, Nathan whispered. She didn't just run, Nathan. She spent 4 weeks infiltrating Pemberton's operation, gathering evidence, building an unbreakable case. She had help. Other immigrants working in government buildings, people Pemberton never noticed because he didn't see them as human beings. Nathan's vision blurred with tears. Where is she? Safe. That's all I can tell you right now. But Nathan, she saved you. She saved all of us. What about Jameson? His testimony about Pemberton's coercion is what sealed the case. He's been granted full immunity and relocated with his daughter for their protection. As Nathan walked out of the Dallas County Detention Center 6 hours later, he felt like a man emerging from a tomb. The sun was too bright, the air too sweet, the world too beautiful after weeks of concrete and steel. His empire was gone, liquidated to pay legal fees and investigations. His penthouse was seized, his assets frozen. He had nothing but the clothes on his back and a burning need to find the woman who'd sacrificed everything to save him. But as he stood on the courthouse steps, breathing free air for the first time in weeks, Nathan Hoffer realized something profound. He wasn't the same man who'd been arrested. That man had measured his worth by stock prices and profit margins. This man knew that the only wealth that mattered was love. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. White Rock Lake. The old oak tree where we had our first picnic. Come alone. Nathan's heart soared. She was here. She was safe. And she was waiting for him. The ultimate sacrifice hadn't been losing his empire. It had been learning that some things were worth more than money, more valuable than power, more precious than pride. Nathan Hoffer was finally ready to be the man Marjie Perez deserved, and this time, nothing would ever separate them again. Chapter 8. Rising from Ashes. Sometimes you had to lose everything to discover that love was the only thing worth finding. Nathan's hands trembled as he drove toward White Rock Lake, his heart hammering after 4 weeks in federal detention. The text had been simple. White Rock Lake, the old oak tree, come alone. She stood with her back to him under their favorite tree, wearing simple jeans and a white blouse, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She was thinner, shadows beneath her eyes, speaking of sleepless nights and constant fear. But she was alive, safe, and here. Marjie, he said softly. She turned, and her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Then she was running toward him, and Nathan caught her in his arms, both crying and laughing as they held each other. "You found me," she sobbed against his neck. "I'll always find you," he whispered. "Always. I'm sorry I broke my promise. I couldn't run while you were in prison for crimes you didn't commit. You magnificent, stubborn woman. Do you know how terrified I was that Pemberton would find you? I was careful. I had help. People who've been invisible so long that powerful men forget they exist." She pulled back to meet his eyes. "Cleaning crews, maintenance workers, security guards who've been watching and listening for years." They settled beneath the oak tree where they'd first talked about their dreams. Nathan couldn't stop touching her, her hand, her face, needing constant confirmation she was real. "Tell me everything," he said. "I went to Rosa, told her what was happening. She connected me with her network, other immigrants who've been hurt by corruption. We applied for cleaning jobs in Pemberton's building, spent weeks photographing documents, planting recording devices." Nathan felt humbled by her courage. If he'd caught you, he never looked twice. Men like Pemberton don't see people like me as threats. Her eyes hardened. "We found everything. Financial records showing years of influence peddling. Evidence that your case was just one of many. Recordings of him bragging about framing you. The voice synthesis, the forged documents. Remington Carstairs helped us hire forensic experts who traced every digital fingerprint back to Pemberton's operation, every fake recording, every planted document. We tracked it all." Nathan pulled her closer, overwhelmed by what she'd accomplished. "I lost everything. The company, the penthouse, the money, all gone." "I know," Marjie said simply. "Do you mind?" Nathan considered seriously. 3 months ago, losing his empire would have destroyed him. Now, sitting with the woman he loved, he felt richer than ever. "No," he said, meaning it. "I don't mind at all." "Good, because I have plans for us." "What kind of plans?" Her eyes sparkled. "First, we're getting married. Next week. I've been planning our wedding for 4 weeks, and I'm not waiting any longer." Nathan laughed, overwhelmed by her determination. "And after, we rebuild, not an empire, something better, a foundation that helps people like us. I've already started the paperwork." "With what money?" "I kept some from your safety deposit box, just enough to get started. The rest went to the investigation." She took his hands. "We don't need millions to make a difference. We need passion and love." Nathan stared at this incredible woman who'd saved his life and was planning their future with the same courage she'd used to bring down a corrupt senator. "I love you more than I've ever loved anything," he said. "I love you too. And Nathan, these past weeks showed me I'm not the helpless girl you thought you were rescuing. I'm your equal partner in everything we build." "You always were," Nathan said, meaning it. "I just needed to see past my own arrogance." 1 week later, Nathan stood at the altar of a small chapel in Oak Cliff, watching Marjie walk down the aisle in a simple white dress Rosa had sewn. She carried sunflowers, and the small congregation included Rosa, Magnolia, Remington Carstairs, and even Jameson Holloway with his daughter Emma, now in remission. When Remington asked for their vows, Nathan's voice was thick with emotion. "Marjie, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. I promise to love you not for what you can give me, but for who you are, in poverty or wealth, in joy or sorrow, forever." Marjie's eyes filled with tears. "Nathan, you taught me that love isn't about what we have, but who we choose to be together. I promise to stand beside you, to dream with you, to build something beautiful from whatever life gives us." Rosa wept openly as they exchanged rings, not expensive diamonds, but simple bands they'd chosen together. This wasn't the lavish society wedding Nathan could have once afforded, but it was perfect, real, theirs. As they kissed, the congregation erupted in cheers. Nathan had never felt richer. Their honeymoon was spent in Austin, making love and making plans. For the first time since his arrest, Nathan allowed himself to process what he'd lost and what he'd gained. The empire, the penthouse, the respect of Dallas society, all gone. But holding Marjie as she slept, he felt a peace he'd never known as a billionaire. "Do you miss it?" Marjie asked one evening as they watched the sunset. "The penthouse, the power?" "Not for a second," Nathan said. "That life was a prison. This is freedom." 6 months later, Nathan stood in their small office space in East Dallas, looking at the sign, "The Hoffer Perez Foundation, Justice for All." Marjie worked beside him, helping families while finishing her teaching certification. The beginning had been harder than either expected. Long days with no pay, rejected cases, bureaucratic obstacles. But slowly, word spread through the immigrant community about the couple who'd fought corruption and won. Families began seeking their help. They'd helped 67 families, securing legal status, fighting corporate abuse, exposing corruption. Each victory felt more meaningful than any business deal Nathan had ever closed. It wasn't the empire he'd once commanded, but it was work that changed lives. "Mr. Hoffer," a young woman with a baby stood in the doorway. "I heard you help people like me." "We help people who need justice," Nathan said gently. "Come in." As he listened to another story of struggle, Nathan reflected on how his definition of success had changed. He measured victories now in families reunited, in justice served, in hope restored. That evening, walking home through their neighborhood, Nathan felt a peace he'd never known as a billionaire. "Happy?" Marjie asked, squeezing his hand. "Completely," Nathan said. "For the first time in my life, completely happy." They'd risen from the ashes to build something infinitely more valuable, a love tested by fire and emerged stronger, a partnership based on shared values rather than wealth, a future built on hope. Nathan Hoffer had lost a fortune and found his soul. It was the best trade he'd ever made. Chapter 9. The Impossible Dream. Hope was the cruelest gift God could give, until it became the greatest miracle he could bestow. 3 years of marriage had taught Nathan Hoffer that happiness came in unexpected packages. As he watched his wife grade papers at their kitchen table in their modest Oak Cliff home, her brow furrowed in concentration, he marveled at how completely his world had transformed. Their 2-bedroom house wasn't much by his former standards, but it was filled with more love than his billion-dollar penthouse had ever known. "These kids are improving every day," Marjie said, looking up from her stack of essays. She'd been teaching third grade at Roosevelt Elementary for 18 months now, having finally completed her teaching certification while working at the foundation. Miguel wrote his first complete story about his family, and Sophia's reading comprehension has jumped 2 grade levels. "They're lucky to have you," Nathan said, setting a cup of coffee beside her papers. "You believe in them the way you believed in me when no one else would." "The way you believe in our families at the foundation," Marjie corrected. "We're a good team, Mr. Hoffer." Nathan smiled at the understatement. The Hoffer Perez Foundation had grown beyond their wildest expectations, handling over 500 cases in 3 years. They'd reunited families separated by immigration enforcement, challenged corporate wage theft, and provided legal aid to those who couldn't afford justice. It wasn't the empire Nathan had once commanded, but it was work that mattered. "Speaking of the foundation," Nathan said, settling into the chair across from her, "Dr. Beaumont Coulter called today. He wants to meet with us next week about our case." Margie's hand stilled on her red pen. They'd been seeing Dr. Coulter for 14 months now, ever since they'd decided to seriously pursue having a family. The fertility specialist had been brutally honest from the beginning. Nathan's chances of fathering children were virtually non-existent, less than 1% given the extent of his internal injuries. "About the adoption referrals?" Marjie asked, hopefully. "I think so. He mentioned having some developments regarding our situation. They'd been on adoption waiting lists through 4 different agencies for over 2 years. The process was expensive, emotionally draining, and complicated by their unconventional circumstances. Nathan's criminal charges, though dismissed, still appeared in background checks. The agencies were cautious, requiring additional home studies and psychological evaluations. "I've been thinking," Marjie said carefully, "maybe we should consider fostering first. There are so many children who need temporary homes while their cases are decided." "Are you sure? Foster care can be heartbreaking when children have to return to unsafe situations. But what if we could provide safety and love for even a short time? What if we could make a difference in a child's life, even if we can't keep them forever?" Nathan reached across the table to take her hand. "If that's what you want, then that's what we'll do. You have enough love in your heart for a dozen children." "We have enough love," Marjie corrected. "I've seen you with the kids at the community center, Nathan. You're going to be an amazing father." The word father still sent a thrill through Nathan's chest. At 37, he'd thought that dream was buried with Emily 17 years ago. Marjie had resurrected so many parts of him he'd thought were lost forever. Their conversation was interrupted by Rosa's arrival. At 86, Margie's grandmother moved slower, but her spirit remained indomitable. She'd been living in the small apartment they'd built above their garage for 2 years now, close enough to help with daily life, but independent enough to maintain her dignity. "Mijo," Rosa said, kissing Nathan's cheek. "You look tired. Are you eating enough?" "He's been working 16-hour days again," Marjie said, giving Nathan a pointed look. "The Martinez deportation hearing is next week. If we lose, 4 children get separated from their parents," Nathan explained. "I can't let that happen." "You cannot save everyone," Rosa said gently, settling into her favorite chair. "Even God rested on the 7th day." "I'll rest when justice doesn't require constant vigilance," Nathan replied, but he smiled to soften the words. "How are you feeling, Abuela? You seemed tired at dinner Sunday." "Old bones, nothing more. The doctor says my heart is strong as an ox, even if my knees disagree." They spent the evening playing dominoes and sharing stories, the kind of simple family time Nathan had never experienced growing up. His wealthy but distant parents had been more interested in social obligations than family bonds. This was what family should be. Later, as they lay in bed, Nathan sensed Margie's restlessness in the darkness. "What's wrong, mi amor?" he asked. "I've been having dreams again," she said quietly. "About babies, about holding our children. Good dreams or troubling dreams? Beautiful dreams, so real I wake up expecting to find a baby in my arms." Nathan pulled her closer. "Maybe they're prophetic dreams. Maybe the universe is preparing us for what's coming." "Do you really believe that?" "I believe in us. I believe love finds a way, even when medicine says it's impossible." The following week, they sat in Dr. Coulter's office, holding hands and trying not to hope too intensely. The fertility specialist was a compassionate man in his 50s who'd been honest about Nathan's condition from the beginning. "I wanted to discuss your options moving forward, Doctor," Coulter said, reviewing their file. "The adoption agencies have estimated 12 to 18 months before placement, which is actually faster than average for couples with your specific circumstances." "We've talked about fostering in the meantime," Marjie said. "Excellent idea. Foster care provides wonderful preparation for eventual adoption." Dr. Coulter paused, studying Nathan's latest test results with unusual interest. "However, I wanted to discuss one more option with you." "What kind of option?" Nathan asked, his heart beginning to race. "Recent advances in fertility treatment have shown remarkable promise for men with conditions similar to yours. There's a procedure called microsurgical sperm extraction combined with intracytoplasmic sperm injection. It's expensive and success rates are still low, but, Marjie leaned forward eagerly, "but in rare cases, men who've been considered completely sterile have fathered children. The key factor appears to be the body's ability to produce even minimal amounts of viable sperm, which can then be enhanced through hormone therapy and extracted for direct fertilization." Nathan felt his pulse hammering. "What kind of success rates?" "Honestly, for someone with your level of damage, we're looking at roughly 3 to 5% chance of success per attempt. Most insurance won't cover it because it's considered experimental." "How much would it cost?" Marjie asked. "Approximately $60,000 for a complete treatment cycle, including multiple extraction attempts and several IVF rounds." Nathan's stomach dropped. $60,000 was more than they made in 2 years at the foundation. It was impossible. "I understand the cost is prohibitive, Doctor," Coulter continued, "but there are clinical trial opportunities, grants for couples in your situation, and some newer programs specifically for men with traumatic injuries like yours." "We'll need to think about it," Nathan said, standing abruptly. "Of course, but Nathan, and I hope you don't mind me being direct, at your age and with your specific condition, time is a factor. The longer we wait, the lower the chances become." In the car afterward, they sat in silence, both processing what they'd heard. 3 to 5%, Marjie said finally. "Practically zero," Nathan replied, "and $60,000 we don't have. But still a chance. A chance to waste money we need for adoption fees and end up with nothing but heartbreak. Or a chance to have our own biological child." Nathan turned to look at her, seeing the hope and longing in her eyes. "Marjie, I can't put you through that kind of disappointment. What if we spend everything we have and it doesn't work? What if it does work? The odds, I know the odds," Marjie's voice cracked. "I also know that every single thing about our love story has defied the odds. We weren't supposed to find each other. You weren't supposed to fall in love with your housekeeper. I wasn't supposed to be able to save you from federal prison. We weren't supposed to be happy building a life from nothing." Nathan reached for her hand. "This is different. This is medical science, not fairy tales. Love is science too. Hormones, chemistry, biological imperatives working in ways we don't fully understand. And our love has been creating miracles since the day we met." That night, Nathan lay awake staring at the ceiling while Marjie slept restlessly beside him. $60,000 might as well have been 60 million. They barely had 6,000 in savings after 3 years of foundation work and modest living. But what if Marjie was right? What if their love really could create one more miracle? The next morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Nathan's phone rang just as he was leaving for work, his mother's name appearing on the screen. He and Melanie had maintained an uneasy peace since his release from prison, their relationship slowly healing but still fragile. Nathan, Melanie's voice was different, softer, more uncertain than he'd heard in years. "I need to see you. There's something important I should have told you long ago." "Mother, I'm busy. It's about your father. About money he set aside specifically for your future children." Nathan stopped walking. "What money?" "A trust fund. $5 million, established when you were 25. It was meant for medical expenses related to fertility treatments and child-rearing costs. I've been keeping it from you because I hoped you'd marry appropriately and use it for legitimate purposes." Nathan's world tilted. "You've been sitting on $5 million while I've been struggling to afford the treatments that could give me children. I was protecting the family legacy." "The family legacy ends with me either way, Mother. Remember, I'm sterile. But if these new treatments could work, if you could have children with that woman." Nathan closed his eyes, torn between fury and amazement. "Her name is Marjie. She's my wife. And if you want any chance of being part of your potential grandchildren's lives, you'll start showing her the respect she deserves." "Nathan, I'm sorry. I was wrong about her, wrong about everything. When I saw how you changed after the arrest, how much stronger and happier you became, I realized I'd been fighting the best thing that ever happened to you." That evening, Nathan sat Marjie down and told her about the trust fund. Her reaction surprised him. "I don't want it," she said immediately. "What? Why?" "Because it comes with conditions. Your mother's approval, her involvement in our lives, her judgment of our choices. The money belongs to our children, Marjie. Children we might be able to have now. At what cost? Your relationship with your mother has been poisoned for years by her controlling behavior. I won't let money poison ours." Nathan cupped her face in his hands. "What if I told you the money comes with no strings attached? What if my mother wants to earn forgiveness by helping us build the family we've dreamed of? Do you believe that? I believe people can change. I believe love can transform anyone, even Nathan Hoffer. And if the treatments don't work, then we use the rest of the money for adoptions, for fostering, for building the biggest, most loving family we can create. Either way, we win." Marjie was quiet for a long moment, then smiled through her tears. 3 to 5% chance? 3 to 5% chance. When do we start? 4 months later, Nathan held Marjie's hand as Dr. Coulter performed the first microsurgical procedure. The sperm extraction was complex, delicate, and emotionally exhausting, but they endured it together. "The encouraging news, Doctor," Coulter said afterward, "is that we found viable sperm, not many, but enough to attempt fertilization." "And the discouraging news?" Nathan asked. "This is still a long shot. Even with viable sperm, implantation rates are low, miscarriage rates are high, and there are no guarantees." "We understand," Marjie said. "We're prepared for whatever happens." The next months were an emotional roller coaster of hope and heartbreak. The first implantation attempt failed completely. The second resulted in a chemical pregnancy that ended within days, leaving them both devastated. The third attempt never took hold at all. By the fourth procedure, Nathan was ready to surrender. "Maybe this is God's way of telling us to focus on adoption," he said as they drove home from another failed attempt. "Or maybe this is God's way of testing our faith," Marjie replied. "One more try, Nathan. Please. I can't watch you go through this heartbreak again." "Then don't watch. Share it. Feel it with me. Let us be heartbroken together instead of you trying to protect me from pain." Nathan realized she was right. He'd been trying to shield her from disappointment instead of sharing the journey with her. Love wasn't protection, it was partnership. "One more try," he agreed. "Together." The fifth procedure felt different from the beginning. Dr. Coulter was more optimistic, Marjie was calmer, and Nathan felt a peace he couldn't explain. As they left the clinic, Marjie turned to him with tears in her eyes. "I feel different this time," she said. "I can't explain it, but I feel hopeful." "I love your hope," Nathan said, kissing her forehead, "even when it terrifies me." 2 weeks later, Marjie woke up feeling nauseous. She dismissed it as stress until the nausea continued for 4 days straight. On a whim, she bought a pregnancy test on her way home from school. Nathan found her sitting on their bathroom floor 20 minutes later, staring at a plastic stick with tears streaming down her face. "Marjie?" he asked, his heart in his throat. "It's positive," she whispered. "Nathan, it's positive." He sank to the floor beside her, taking the test with trembling hands. 2 pink lines, faint but unmistakable. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'm sure. We did it, Nathan. Against all odds, we actually did it." Nathan pulled her into his arms, both of them crying and laughing and holding each other like they might disappear if they let go. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "I love you and our miracle baby." "Just one baby?" Marjie asked, pulling back to meet his eyes with a mysterious smile. "What do you mean?" "Remember my dreams? The ones about babies, plural." "Nathan, I think our miracle came with a bonus." As they held each other on the bathroom floor of their little house, Nathan marveled at how completely his life had been transformed. 3 years ago, he'd been a broken man convinced he had nothing to offer. Now he was about to become a father, possibly to twins, with the woman who taught him that love really could conquer all. The impossible had become inevitable, and Nathan Hoffer finally understood that the greatest dreams were the ones that defied every odd to come true. Chapter 10. Love's Greatest Miracle. Some miracles whispered softly into the world, but this one announced itself with the lusty cries of 2 perfect souls who had defied every medical prediction to be born. Nathan's hands trembled as he held the ultrasound photo, tears blurring his vision as he stared at the 2 tiny heartbeats flickering on the screen. 8 months had passed since that magical morning when Marjie had shown him the positive pregnancy test, and every day had been a gift he'd never dared to dream possible. Identical twins, Dr. Patricia Reyes, their maternal fetal medicine specialist, had confirmed at their 12-week appointment, her voice filled with wonder, against every medical prediction, against all statistical probability, you're having identical twin boys. Now, at 38 weeks, Marjie glowed with the radiance of a woman carrying miracles. She sat in their antique rocking chair, the same one Rosa had used to rock Marjie as a baby, knitting tiny blue booties while humming a Spanish lullaby her grandmother had taught her. "They're restless tonight," Marjie said, placing both hands on her rounded belly as the babies kicked and rolled. "I think they're eager to meet their papa." Nathan knelt beside the chair, pressing his ear to her stomach. Almost immediately, he felt a tiny foot kick against his cheek, followed by what felt like an elbow from his brother. His heart overflowed with love so intense it took his breath away. "Hello, little warriors," he whispered to her belly. "It's Daddy. We can't wait to hold you." As if responding to his voice, both babies settled into stillness, and Nathan marveled at the connection he already felt to these children who had fought against impossible odds to exist. Dr. Coulter had called it a medical phenomenon, not just the conception against overwhelming odds, but the healthy development of identical twins when the pregnancy should have been extremely high risk. "They know your voice," Marjie said softly, running her fingers through Nathan's hair. They've been listening to you read to them every night. Have I told you today how grateful I am? Nathan asked, looking up at his wife. How amazed I am by what your body has accomplished. Our bodies, Marjie corrected. Our love, our faith. We created this miracle together. The nursery door opened, and Rosa shuffled in carrying a cup of manzanilla tea. At 86, she moved carefully, but her excitement about becoming a great-grandmother had given her renewed energy. How are my great-grandsons tonight? Rosa asked, settling into the chair Nathan had positioned specifically for her visits. Active, Marjie said with a laugh. I think they're ready to make their entrance. Babies come when God calls them, Rosa said wisely. These two have been fighting to exist since the moment they were conceived. They will choose their own perfect time. Nathan stood and walked to the window, looking out at the small garden where he'd built a swing set and sandbox in preparation for the boys' future. Their modest house felt almost too small for the joy it contained. Cribs, changing tables, and boxes of baby clothes donated by families from the foundation filled every available space. We're going to need a bigger place soon, Nathan said, not for the first time. We need to focus on bringing these babies safely into the world, Marjie replied. Everything else can wait. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from Milani. Standing by at the hospital with your father's old baby blankets. Ready whenever you are. So proud of you both. The reconciliation with his mother had been slow and sometimes painful, but genuine. Melanie had thrown herself into grandmother preparation with the same intensity she'd once applied to social climbing. She'd taken parenting classes, read every baby book available, and had even learned to knit from Rosa, a sight that still made Nathan shake his head in wonder. Your mother texted again, Nathan told Marjie. She's more nervous than we are, Marjie laughed. Yesterday she called twice to make sure we had enough newborn diapers. She's trying to make up for lost time. She's trying to be the grandmother she wishes she'd been as a mother, Rosa observed. People can change, mijo. Love changes everything. At 3:23 a.m., Nathan woke to Marjie gripping his arm, her face tense with concentration. Nathan, she whispered, it's time. Are you certain? Oh, I'm certain, she said through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. These babies are definitely ready to meet the world. The drive to Presbyterian Hospital was a blur of excitement and terror. Nathan held Marjie's hand while trying not to speed, his heart hammering as he realized that in just hours they would finally meet the children they'd dreamed of for so long. I'm scared, Marjie admitted as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. Of the delivery? Of how much I already love them. How am I supposed to love them even more when I see their faces? Nathan lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her wedding ring. The same way I loved you more every day after I thought it was impossible to love you more than I already did. Dr. Reyes was waiting in the delivery room along with Dr. Coulter and a neonatal team standing by as a precaution. Nathan had insisted on the best medical team possible, using money from his father's trust to ensure every precaution was taken. Ready to meet your miracles? Dr. Reyes asked as the contractions intensified. We've been ready for 4 years, Nathan said, squeezing Marjie's hand. The delivery was intense but mercifully brief. At 7:18 a.m., their first son entered the world with a cry that sounded like victory. Nathan watched in awe as Dr. Reyes lifted the tiny, perfect baby, his skin pink and healthy, his lungs clearly strong. He's beautiful, the doctor said, placing him on Marjie's chest. Absolutely perfect. Nathan stared at his son, and felt his world shift on its axis. He was impossibly small, incredibly perfect, with dark hair like his mother's, and what looked like green eyes that seemed to look directly at him. Hello, my angel, Marjie whispered, tears streaming down her face. Hello, my beautiful boy. 4 minutes later, Their second son made his entrance with equal drama, announcing his arrival with cries that echoed through the delivery room. He was slightly smaller than his brother, with the same dark hair, but what appeared to be chocolate-brown eyes like Marjie's. "And here's number 2, Doctor," Reyes said, placing the second baby beside his brother on Marjie's chest. "2 perfect, healthy boys. Congratulations, Mom and Dad." Nathan couldn't speak. He stood frozen, staring at his wife and children, overwhelmed by love so profound it felt like drowning in light. These perfect little beings had existed only as dreams and prayers just hours ago. Now they were real, breathing, crying miracles lying in their mother's arms. "Nathan," Marjie said softly, "come meet your sons." He approached the bed on trembling legs, reaching out with shaking fingers to touch his first son's tiny hand. The baby immediately grasped his finger with surprising strength, and Nathan felt his heart expand beyond what he'd thought was possible. "He knows you," Marjie said, watching their son hold tight to Nathan's finger. Nathan leaned down to touch his second son's cheek, marveling at the incredible softness of his skin. The baby turned toward his touch, and Nathan felt tears he didn't know he was crying fall onto the blanket. "I can't believe they're real," he whispered. "I can't believe they're ours," Marjie replied. "What are we going to name them?" Nathan asked. They'd discussed dozens of possibilities but had never settled on final choices. Marjie looked at their first son, then their second, her face radiant with joy. "Gabriel Nathan Hoffer," she said, touching their first son's tiny nose, "for God's strength and the Father who will love him unconditionally." "And his brother?" Nathan asked. "Diego Rosa Hoffer, for the journey that brought us together and the great-grandmother who taught us about love." "Gabriel and Diego," Nathan repeated, tasting the names. "Perfect." The next hours passed in a blur of visitors, photographs, and wonder. Rosa arrived first, taking turns holding each great-grandson while crying tears of joy. Melanie came next, her usual composure cracking the moment she saw the twins. "They're perfect," she whispered, holding Gabriel with shaking hands. "Absolutely perfect." "Would you like to hold your other grandson?" Marjie asked. And Melanie nodded, tears streaming down her face as Nathan placed Diego in her arms. "I'm sorry," Melanie said suddenly, looking at Marjie. "I'm so sorry for the way I treated you, for the things I said. You've given my son everything I couldn't. Happiness, purpose, and now these beautiful children." "We're family now," Marjie said simply. "All of us. That's all that matters." Magnolia Beauregard arrived with flowers and tears, followed by families from the foundation, teachers from Marjie's school, and friends who'd become chosen family. The hospital room overflowed with love and laughter as their community celebrated the newest additions. That evening, as visiting hours ended and they were finally alone with their babies, Nathan sat in the chair beside Marjie's bed, holding Diego while she nursed Gabriel. The weight of his son in his arms felt like holding the entire universe, fragile, precious, and infinitely valuable. "Do you remember," Marjie said softly, "that first night when I found you having nightmares? When you told me you had nothing to offer? I remember thinking I was broken beyond repair. What do you think now?" Nathan looked at his son's peaceful face, then at his wife nursing their other son, then at the life they'd built together from the ashes of his old existence. "I think broken things can be mended with love," he said. "I think miracles happen when you stop believing in limitations. I think the man who had everything really had nothing, and the man who lost everything found the only things that matter." "What matters?" Marjie asked, though she knew the answer. "Love, family, the chance to wake up every morning next to the woman who saved my soul and raised children who will know they were wanted desperately and loved completely." Gabriel stirred in Nathan's arms, his tiny hand reaching up to grasp Nathan's finger again. The simple gesture sent waves of fierce protectiveness and overwhelming love through Nathan's chest. "I promise you," Nathan whispered to his son, "that you will never doubt you are loved. I promise you'll grow up knowing that love is the most powerful force in the universe, that kindness matters more than wealth, that family is everything. And you, my beautiful boy," Marjie said to Diego, "will grow up knowing that miracles are real, that fighting for what matters is always worth it, that love can conquer any obstacle." 6 months later, Nathan stood in the nursery of their new house, a comfortable 4-bedroom home in a family-friendly neighborhood with a yard where children could play safely. Gabriel and Diego slept peacefully in their cribs, both healthy and thriving beyond every medical prediction. Marjie found him there, as she often did, simply watching their children sleep. "Having trouble believing they're real?" she asked, slipping her arms around his waist. "Having trouble believing I deserve them," Nathan admitted, "that we deserve this much happiness." "We fought for this happiness," Marjie reminded him. "We earned it through love, through faith, through refusing to give up on each other. Do you ever miss our old life? The simplicity of just the two of us?" Marjie laughed softly. "Never. This chaos, this exhaustion, this overwhelming love. This is what I was born for. What we were born for." Nathan turned in her arms, looking at the woman who had transformed every aspect of his existence. "What do you think they'll be when they grow up?" "Loved," Marjie said simply. "Everything else is just details." As they stood in the soft glow of the nightlight watching their miracle babies sleep, Nathan reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 4 years ago, he'd been a man frozen in time, convinced his story was over. Now he was living the most beautiful chapter of a love story that had defied every odd, overcome every obstacle, and created literal miracles. Gabriel stirred in his crib, making soft baby sounds that made both parents smile. Diego stretched and yawned, his tiny face peaceful in sleep. They were perfect, these children who had been medically impossible, these gifts who had chosen Nathan and Marjie as their parents against overwhelming odds. "I love you," Nathan whispered to his wife. "I love our children. I love the life we've built together." "I love you too," Marjie replied, "all of you, forever and always." The man who had once believed he was sterile now held his son each morning and watched his other son discover the world with wonder-filled eyes. The woman who had risked everything for love now had a family that proved every risk had been worth taking. Their love story had begun with ice meeting fire, continued through storms that would have destroyed lesser couples, and culminated in the greatest miracle of all, life created from love, hope made manifest in 2 perfect children who bore their features and carried their dreams into the future. Nathan Hoffer had learned the ultimate truth, that real wealth wasn't measured in dollars or assets, but in moments like these, in the trust of a baby falling asleep in your arms, in the smile of a woman who chose to love you when you couldn't love yourself, in the knowledge that love, when it was real and true and fought for, really could conquer everything. As he and Marjie finally left the nursery to get what sleep they could before the next feeding, Nathan felt a peace so complete it took his breath away. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new moments of wonder as Gabriel and Diego continued to grow and discover the world. But tonight, the billionaire who had discovered that love was the only currency that mattered, was the richest man alive. And their story, their beautiful, impossible, miraculous love story, would continue for generations, living on in the hearts of the children who had defied every odd to be born into a world where love truly conquered all.